read 6 books this month. Hi everyone, I'm Aru and welcome back to my channel. Anyway, so every year, I think all of us are familiar with this, but we make a resolution that we are going to read books this year. Every year, on 30th of December, we are like, okay, new year resolution, reading more books. And January 1st hits, we maybe pick up a book, but a week into it, we basically abandon every New Year resolution. And I'm speaking from personal experience. Might not be you, it's very me. Anyway, like every year, I decided again to read more books because I love reading, but I don't have the inclination to do it as much for the past few years. But this year, I'm like, I need to do it. So I picked up books and I read 6 books this month, which I think is a great improvement for someone who loves reading but has no motivation to do so, or did not have one for a very long time. So I read 6 books this month. So I'm here to talk about these books in very short and just tell you how these books were, so maybe you would also pick them up and be interested to read it. And so here we go. So I'll go in chronological order of the books. The first book that I read was Beautiful World, Where Are You by Sally Rooney. Now, I heard a lot about Sally Rooney and I really wanted to try her reading because it looked like something that I would be interested in. So I did exactly that. And I loved the book. Beautiful World, Where Are You is basically about these two friends, Eileen and Alice. And Alice is a young author. They're both in their late 20s, almost going into 30s. And at this crossroads of life, and they're trying to figure out life and the world around them. It's very perspective, it's deep, it will like make you question a lot of things. They talk about everything that's happening in the world around them, talk about politics, they talk about capitalism, Marxism, because Sally Rooney is a believer of Marxism. And they also, while doing all this, they are struggling with their own friendships, relationships, and just figuring their life out. I really liked reading it. It was a great book. It was very fun to read because I would read and then sit and think about what I just read. So it took a little while. It took me like 3 days to get through this book. And it has some very interesting takes on the world and on life and on humans. So I thought it was a very good book. Although I would tell you one thing, I am warning you, I got a lot of warnings, to not read this as the first Sally Rooney book. She has other 2 books called Normal People and Conversations with Friends, which are recommended to read first, but I picked this because it just felt more my speed. And I enjoyed it. I have to say, I enjoyed it. And I read it in a online form, so I don't have the book in my hand, but I have put a picture here so you can look at the cover. I put the links down for you to buy it if you want. Alright, now the second book that I read was this book. It's called Club You to Death by Anuja Chauhan. I am not very big on murder mysteries. I'm not a huge fan of them, but this I think the cover and the title really interested me, and it's very smartly done. And probably the best thing about this book, it was a leisure read. I liked it, but also not liked it too much. It was okay. The plot was okay. It was not the greatest, but yeah, I don't have anything particularly bad to say about it, but nothing too particularly great about it either. I'll say this thing: the first half is not the best. First half is kind of boring, and they're setting up the story, which kind of at times is unnecessary. I didn't think it was needed, but the second half does get much better. It's fun to read. It's not bad. I would give it like 3 stars. It was okay. Okay. So this is the second book that I read. Now, the third book that I read was 5 People You Meet in Heaven. Now this is by the author of one of my most all-time favorite books, Tuesdays with Morrie. And I obviously, because of Tuesdays with Mori, I have very high bar for this author, which is unfair to him, but I still like this book. It was interesting to read. It is basically about how everything you do affects another person, about how we are all connected by our actions. Like me doing something affects someone else always, and it's about that. So the 5 people he meets once the main character passes away is about, and few of them he doesn't even recognize. It's just they have somehow his life has somehow affected their life without them meeting, without them knowing each other. It's just strangers. So and in a way that you wouldn't think would affect someone. So I mean, it was good to read. It is a different perspective and a different way to look at afterlife and how we think of heaven and how we think of our life on earth and how if we have done anything impactful. It's about how he constantly questioned if he deserves a place in heaven. But that's the book. What book is about? It's a different perspective on what we think of heaven as to be. So yeah, it was good. It was fun to read. It's a short book, so it didn't take too long. But it's good. Mitch Albom, I think I'm gonna read more by him because I think I like his writing style. So I'll check those more out. Right, that was the 3rd book that I read. Now, the 4th book that I read was a book that was so highly suggested. That is The 7 Husbands of Everlyn Hugo. This book has taken over everything. It has taken over YouTube, it has taken over Reels, has taken over Instagram, over every person I know, whoever reads books. And everyone I met, I'm like, oh, I'm reading books, can you suggest me something? Would suggest me this book. And I was like, okay, you know what, I'll give it a go. So I got it, and I started reading it the same night, and I finished it in one sitting. I finished this book in one sitting. I could not put this down. It was wonderful. It's so wonderfully written. It's about this Hollywood actress. Her name is Everlyn Hugo, and Everlyn Hugo is this huge Hollywood star who has kind of disappeared from public for a few years, for a lot of time, after having much success in this industry, and now suddenly she has resurfaced and has reached out to this magazine company for this one specific woman to allow her to interview, an exclusive interview, to give an exclusive interview to this magazine just for this girl. And then it slowly unravels where she starts telling her whole story to this young writer about her life, about everything. And she had 7 husbands, like the title suggests. She married 7 times, so she spills and shares the stories and about every relationship, and it's very interesting because then you understand how it is to be on the spotlight. You understand her perspective because she talks about how it is being the center of attention at all times, about fame, and about how the industry can be messy, and about how being a woman in this industry, she had to go through a lot and put up a brave face and stand up for herself, and other times compromise her own dignity and her she wouldn't call it dignity, but like how society would suggest, her own dignity, to get things done and get things done her way is what this book is about. It's so good, it's so interesting. You just want to keep reading and keep knowing what happens, and you're amazed by this by Everlyn Hugo, who is just a force of nature. She has gone through so much and is still standing tall, and just the ending, just keep reading it because you just want to know what's happening at the end and why she picked this particular interviewer, this particular young woman to be interviewed by, and it all unravels in the end, and you'll have, my jaw was on the floor. I absolutely enjoyed it to the fullest, and I wish I could read it again for the first time. That's how good this book was. Now the third, how many books am I done with? 5th book, yes. Now the 5th book that I read was by an Indian author, Jhumpa, which I think a lot of you might be familiar with because she is quite a famous author. And it's called The Namesake. This is the first book I've read by her, and I enjoyed it. She is particularly known for writing about Indians living in America, living in the US. And in this book, she follows this Bengali family who just moved to the US, a couple who just got married and then immediately just moved to the US, and how they brought up two children and their experiences about how it is different for an Indian to come from India to US versus an Indian being born and brought up in US. It's two different experiences for people living in the same family. So it's about that. It's about identity and about how this boy has this weight of a name which he does not understand, and when he does, he just feels like heavy is the head that wears the crown. He just feels heavy about getting this name given to him, and he struggles with identity. He struggles with his family and what he wants to show to other people and what he has to hide from other people. And it's mainly about Gol, who is the child, who is the oldest son. And I enjoyed it. I think it took me a little while to get used to her style. The first 50 pages took me a while to get through, but once I got a hang of it, it was smooth sailing, and I was hooked onto the story. I wanted to know more. It is about how it is to be an immigrant in the US, an Indian immigrant. So yeah, it was good. I enjoyed it a lot. The last book that I read, which I didn't think I would be able to read, but I just decided to read. I read it in a PDF form, so I don't have a copy in my hand. It was inspired by my Hamilton fan in me, which is Common Sense by Thomas Paine, which was referenced in the song called Skylar Sisters, where Angelica Schuyler says this: "I've been reading Common Sense by Thomas Paine, so men say that I'm intense or I'm insane." So that book, I decided to read it because I wanted to see why was it such a big deal that it was mentioned in this book, in this huge musical, and one of the few books that has been mentioned. So I decided to read it, and I started reading it last year. When I got it, I read like 30 pages, and I realized why you need to be intense or insane to read that book, because it was very intense. There's so many ideas in that book. It's about it was written during the time. It was written by Thomas Paine, but it was written during the time where British still had colonies in America, and America was on its way to getting its independence. And it is one of the instigators or one of the motivators for the process to be speeded up, because it inspired people, because it is a take where he really dislikes dislike is a very weak word for it. He really despises the monarchy system, and he does not understand British Parliament and how the British government runs. So he basically just talks about how it is not a good thing and how we need to be freed from that so that we can have our own system, so that they can have their own system and run with it. He talks about the two houses of the parliament, about the executive and the legislature, about how people who are well versed in legislative processes, and they make the legislature, and the people who approve it have no knowledge about why they did this, and it is in their hands that they get to choose if it happens or not. And he thinks it's bizarre, and he thinks it's not right. So that's just one of the ideas that he talks about. But there are a lot of them. I can sit and just talk about that book for hours, because it's very interestingly done, which could be applied still to every political system there is at the moment. But it's a very interesting commentary, a very interesting political commentary, for you to understand what was it like in America and British, and how the tensions and how the process eventually speeded up. So yeah, I enjoyed that book as well, and that was the last book I read in January, and I cannot wait to read more books. I have a few in the list, and I think I'll make this a monthly video. I'll make monthly videos talking about these books, and if there's a particular book you want me to talk about more in depth, please comment down below and let me know, and I'll make a special video about it. Thank you so much for watching. Give me book suggestions because I'm in my reading spree and I will read anything at this point. Yeah, again, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share with your friends, and I will see you next time. Bye.